Welcome to our Copilot 101 webinar. Today is designed to be practical and end user focused, based around what Copilot Chat is, where it helps day to day and how to use it safely. So what will you take away from today? So this is very much an art of the possible session with real examples on how to, delivered by Andy. For those who haven't done any AI at all, you don't need any special setup or any licenses to follow along, as this is focused on the free version of Copilot Chat. And a bit of housekeeping for today. We've got the hour till 11. That includes Q&A, so feel free to use the chat area. We'll triage, group those questions for the end where we can review those, and we are recording the session and we'll send the link out afterwards. Quick intro for the host today. So I'm James Delaney. I'm a Solutions Director at Manage 24/7. I head off the pre-sales function and the service design function at Manage 24/7, as well as developing our go-to-market strategies for our service portfolio. I work closely with our vendor alliances like Microsoft to help deliver enablement like today that hopefully resonates and adds a bit of value back to our clients. And we've got Andy, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, please.
Yep, thanks very much, James. Hi, everyone. My name's Andy. I work for a company called Illuminate Learning. We're a Microsoft training provider. Really happy to be here on the call with you today to talk about some of the value you can get from Copilot Chat. So I spend most of my time speaking to different Microsoft partners, making sure they're getting the most value out of the Microsoft products and services that they've invested in.
Lovely. Thank you, Andy. And just a bit about Manage 24/7 for those that aren't familiar with us. We're a UK-based outsourced IT provider, founded in 2009. We hold a market-leading NPS score for our client base, circa 94%, which I've worked in a few MSPs, and that is market-leading. That's for our service desk offering. We provide two core capabilities to our clients, delivering professional services, support with design, deployment, transformation programs, as well as adoption of technology, as well as managed services, including our 24/7 service desk. Lastly, we are a Microsoft-focused partner, and we help organizations modernize their workforce, provide enablement, governance, as well as security-minded adoption, as well as practical support to help them get the most out of their technology choices. So that's just a bit about Manage 24/7.
If you do have any questions as you're going through, please feel free to put them into the Q&A window in the Teams application. We'll do our best to either answer those questions as we're going through, or we'll pick them up at the end and answer those questions for you. So without further ado, let's kind of get into it, I suppose. And I'd like to start things off with this little slide here, which compares the evolution of mobile phone technology, something we're all pretty familiar with the evolution of AI technology. And the first mobile phone, or one of the first mobile phones to come onto the market, was this Motorola device back in 1983. The old brick phone, you know, heavy as anything, the massive aerial on the top. And then very quickly things started to progress, and during the 1990s, sort of Nokia dominated the world. A few of us might have had this one. If you were around at the turn of the century, then pretty much everyone had one of these bad boys, the Nokia 3310, and you spent far too much time playing Snake and downloading ringtones and things like that. And then in 2007, things changed a bit because the iPhone was released, and at this point, these devices started to become sort of aspirational. There's, you know, people really wanted to have a specific type of device. In 2008, they then launched the App Store, and that's what really changed how we use mobile phone devices today, because they're not really phones, right? You kind of use them for everything. You use them for, you know, managing your finances, you use them for watching TV, you use them for booking travel, all these different sorts of things that you do from these smart devices. So over this period of like 40 years or so, mobile phone technology has changed a lot, to the extent that what we have back here in the 80s is almost unrecognizable from what we have today. In fact, if you were to give a teenager one of these devices right now, they'd probably think, you know, what's this kind of thing you've done here? I can't do anything with it. It's useless. It doesn't do anything I want it to do. Whereas at the time, this was, of course, you know, groundbreaking technology. You could do things with this device that nobody was able to ever do before in the past. And the fact that you could phone someone and actually phone that person and they could pick it up wherever they were was really, truly kind of groundbreaking. Now, the comparison here we're making with AI is that this is sort of still where we are with AI, right? We're still at the early stages of AI. What you can do is incredible. You can do some really, really clever stuff with AI. The technology is amazing, but we're still sort of just scratching the surface. There's still a long way to go, and we're going to see things progress a lot over the next few months and years, but at a speed far, far greater than what we saw with mobile phone technology. You know, this journey here, which took 40 years to get from this quite basic, but still, you know, technologically advanced device over here to the things we have today, things have changed a lot. And with AI, stuff's moving very, very quickly, almost on a week-by-week basis. I see something new pop up in Copilot. I see a new feature, a new function, a new way to use AI technology. So it's as bad as it will ever be right now. It's only going to get better, and it's only going to influence more things we do in our work lives and in our personal lives as well. Now, even though we're at these early stages, that doesn't mean we should ignore it. That doesn't mean we should push it to one side and not think about it. You know, we don't want to wait for it to get better. We should start engaging with it now. We should start learning about what we can do with it, how we can use it safely and securely, and how we can get some sort of benefit out of it. And if we learn those sort of foundational things now, those fundamental things now, that's going to put us in a much better place in the coming months and years, where it's going to be almost, you know, impossible to avoid using AI in some sort of shape and form in our work lives and in our personal lives as well. So start engaging with it, start working out some of the things that you can do with it, and then that's going to put us in a really good place moving forward. So the primary kind of focus for this session is Copilot Chat. And what is Copilot Chat? So Copilot Chat is a business approved AI chat tool. If you're working at organizations that have already adopted AI, then fantastic, that's great. A lot of organizations have not formally adopted AI just yet, but it's probably then naive to think that your employees aren't using AI. You know, if you haven't given them a work approved AI tool to use, then almost certainly people are going away and they're using ChatGPT, or they're using Gemini, or they're using Grok, or any of the other thousands of AI tools that are out there. Okay, so, you know, that obviously has certain risks associated with it. I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious, you know, if you're not familiar with these sorts of risks. One of the good things about using Copilot is essentially that if you're signed in with your work account and you're using M365 Copilot, you get something called enterprise data protection, which basically means that all of your data is safe and secure. Anything you type into Copilot, any content you upload into Copilot, that's all kept safe and secure within your Microsoft tenant, within your security boundary. None of that information is used to train any AI language models. None of that information is being made public. And that's not necessarily the case if you've got people that are using the free consumer versions of any AI applications. Quite often those free consumer versions do use any data you put into them to train their models to learn about how people communicate and to, you know, grow its own sort of understanding of all sorts of different things. So that's one of the main kind of driving reasons why, if you are happy for your employees to start using AI, you probably want them to use a business approved AI tool like Copilot, because then that means you have that level of protection of your data that you don't get with some of these consumer applications. Just to reiterate that, there are essentially 3 different versions of Copilot. The one on the left-hand side here, which is just called Copilot, is the personal consumer version that anybody can go away and download, and they can log in with their personal email address, their Gmail account, their Hotmail account, something like that. And they can get access to Copilot, and it functions in a pretty sort of similar way as ChatGPT does in that case for that consumer version. In fact, it uses the same language model, the GPT language model that ChatGPT uses. We then have Copilot Chat in the middle here, which is the focus for the first part of this session. And this is an M365 product. This is included if you've got M365 licenses already. You'll already have access to M365 Copilot Chat. And the biggest difference here is the thing you can see in the middle, that line there about enterprise data protection, which I spoke about before. So essentially, if you've got people using M365 Copilot Chat, that means that, again, you have that level of protection. All of your work data, all of their personal data is kind of kept safe and secure. Okay, a bit later in this session, for the last 10 minutes or so, we'll move over to the right-hand side and we'll start looking at M365 Copilot, the full-blown, fully licensed version of Copilot, which has integration into your M365 applications. and also has access to your work data, and you can do some really quite clever stuff because it has access to your work information as well. Copilot Chat is grounded in the web, which means it gets all of its data from publicly available information on the World Wide Web. That's where all of its knowledge comes from. You can still ask it questions, you can still get it to come back with responses for you, but it doesn't out of the box sort of reference your work information, and I'll show you that working a little bit later on. Lots of different ways to access Copilot. You can access it through the M365 Copilot app, which I've got down here. This is the M365 Copilot app. I'll show you around this in just a moment. You can also access it through a browser. You can come here and just go to office.com. Okay, if you're not already logged in, it will ask you to sign in. That's unusual. I'm usually already signed in, but let's try this. There we go. And it takes me to a page here, which is, really similar to the M365 Copilot app. Couple of things to point out here, I suppose. Like currently, I am actually signed in with a premium account, a fully licensed version of Copilot. So you see down here it says premium. I get a couple of other little options popping up as well that you wouldn't normally see. Copilot is sort of front and center to almost everything that Microsoft's doing now. You'll see Copilot popping up all over the place. It used to be the case that if you signed into office.com, it would take you to a page where you could kind of easily access all your different apps and your SharePoint sites and those sorts of things. You can still access those from here just by coming to apps down at the bottom. But this is just an illustration that, you sign into Microsoft, the first thing you see now is Copilot, and it really is sort of popping up everywhere. You can also access Copilot inside the Edge browser. If you use the Edge browser, you'll see a little Copilot icon up there at the top right, and you can use Copilot Chat within there. If you're using Teams and Outlook, you can also pin Copilot to the sidebar on the left-hand side there, and you can easily access Copilot from there. And then, of course, you can access Copilot on your mobile devices. And again, if you download Copilot onto your mobile device, just make sure you're using that M365 Copilot app, sign in with your work account, and then again, you'll have that enterprise data protection just to kind of give you that guarantee that all of your work information is safe and secure. So how do we get started with Copilot Chat? I've got a quick little video to show you here. This is a little bit out of date, but I still think it's worth showing you this. So we'll just run through this. It just takes a minute or so.
Copilot Chat gives you free and secure enterprise-ready AI chat powered by GPT-4o in a familiar and consistent interface. Say you work in business planning for an EV charging company, and you're developing the strategy for the year. You start by asking Copilot to do some research on the web. You want some basic information, like how EV charging has grown by region. Copilot is grounded in the web, so it can reason over the entire internet and quickly pull the relevant information. Great! Now let's see how these national trends compare to your sales results. With Copilot Chat, you can easily and securely upload files, like your sales data, and have it visualize your regional sales for the past few quarters. And you can continue to iterate with Copilot, like asking it to recommend strategies to help increase sales in lower performing regions. With Copilot Chat, you can quickly gather insights from the web and securely upload and analyze your data, bringing the power of AI directly to your workflow.
Excellent. So that's a bit out of date, like I said there. It mentioned there that it uses GPT-4 language model. That's actually GPT-5 now, so that's moved on a little bit. That's not really something you need to worry about. Essentially, you'll get the latest version of the GPT language model made available to you when it's available. So yeah, you don't need to worry about that so much. So how to get started? Sign in with your work account. Ensure you've signed in with your work account. You can use the M365 app. You can go to office.com. And if you're signed in with your work account into the M365 Copilot app, you will see that you get this little green shield icon just here. And in fact, I'll show you. Here's my little green shield icon up here. And if I hover over that, that just tells me again about that enterprise data protection. And if I wanted to, I can click on that link, and that takes me to a page on the Microsoft website where it tells me a bit more about enterprise data protection and what that actually means. Okay, so navigating around the Copilot application, typically I would go to the chat section over here on the left-hand side. Sometimes these menus do change around a little bit. In fact, you might notice that the menu here in the Copilot app is a little bit different to the menu on the browser over here. So don't be surprised if things change a little bit. You know, that's part of the joy of living with a SaaS application like this. Sometimes things do move around a little bit. But typically I go to this chat section over here, and then I have the main section over here where I would start engaging with Copilot or asking you for information. I then have this section over here called agents. That's not really something we're going to touch on too much today, but essentially agents are like smaller optimized little copilots that do specific jobs really well. And even in Copilot Chat, even in the free version of Copilot, you do get access to some agents out of the box. There's one called the prompt coach, which helps you write like more detailed specific prompts. There's one called the learning coach, which can help you to you know, learn a new subject or a new topic, or maybe learn about a new technology. There's something called the ideas coach, which can help you become a bit more creative, maybe if you need some inspiration there as well. So there's lots of different agents that you can use to help you do certain tasks. If I come down a bit further, I can come to the conversations section, and here I can see previous conversations that I've had with Copilot. I can go back and look at those and check those out again if I wanted to. Come down a bit further, I've got easy access to some of my different applications. There's also, you can see here that I'm signed in with my work account, and if I click on that, you can just see there, that's the kind of thing you want to make sure you're signed in with. So sign in with your work account into the M365 Copilot app, and then you'll always have this enterprise data protection. Okay, so how to chat in 3 steps. So one kind of key thing to point out, I suppose, is, you know, depending on what your algorithms are like on your social media and your LinkedIn pages and things like that, I get a lot of posts popping up that tell me the best ways to prompt. This is how you should be prompting. And they can get quite complicated. You know, there's lots of different methodologies and theories around the best way to prompt with AI. I think the most important thing when you first start using Copilot or any AI tool is that you just kind of have almost normal conversations with it. So just engage with it in your natural language, and it's designed to work with your natural language. You don't need to be a developer, you don't need to be a coder, you don't need to be particularly tech savvy. Just have those conversations in your normal language, in your normal tone, and it will come back with a response for you. And then you might need to reiterate and refine it and give it a bit more information, or ask it to give you a bit more detail on a certain subject, but it will then do that for you, and it will come back with some quite nice information for you. If you've never used it before, this is quite a nice little exercise to go through, and you kind of think about using Copilot for like a personal task to help you get some kind of personal information. And I'm going to go through a little exercise here. Now, you might have just noticed there I clicked onto the web tab. If you're using Copilot Chat, the free version of Copilot, you don't actually see that button at the top there because everything's sort of web by default. You only get to see that work tab if you've got the premium version of Copilot enabled, and then it kind of unlocks that section just there. So for now, I'm going to stay on the web tab, and I'll show you a little prompt like this. So can you suggest an itinerary for a 3-day trip to Barcelona? Let's say I've got an upcoming trip to Barcelona and I'm looking for some suggestions of different things that I can do. And Copilot will go away, and pretty quickly it will come back and it will make some recommendations for some things that I can do in a 3-day trip to Barcelona. And if you've ever been to Barcelona, you'll probably recognize some of the things that are popping up here. You know, scroll down La Rambla, a trip to the Picasso Museum, a few hours on the beach, the Sagrada Familia, all the sorts of things you can see here that you'd expect to see from a trip to Barcelona. Now, I've been there, so I kind of know these sorts of things, but if I was going somewhere I've never been before, this could be a nice little introduction, give me some suggestions for different things that I can go and see. Now, once it's done that, you see here it's actually given me some tips. It's saying, if you'd like, I can tailor this, or I can give you some recommendations about restaurants. I'm going to ask it something else. So I'm going to iterate further here and say, can you recommend, there you go, let's do that one. Can you suggest any budget-friendly hotels near the centre? Now here, I've not mentioned Barcelona, but because I'm having this conversation here in the same thread, Copilot knows to keep the context. So it knows I'm talking about my trip to Barcelona. So it's going to come back now and it's going to give me some recommendations for places that I could stay in Barcelona. Here you go. Here are some reliable, budget-friendly hotel options near the centre of Barcelona. And it's gone away and it's done that for me, which looks pretty good. Okay, and then I could maybe pick one of these. Let's say this one here. That looks good. And then once it's finished this little section here, I can go even further. So I could say something like, can you recommend any nice hotels? Sorry, not hotels, restaurants close to that hotel. So can you suggest the best restaurants near that hotel. And Copilot will go away, and quite quickly it will come back and it will make some recommendations of some nice recommended restaurants that are very close to that hotel that I'm staying in. So when you first start using Copilot, that's not a bad exercise to go through. Use it for something like this, planning a trip away, or maybe, I don't know, organizing a children's birthday party or something like that. Kind of have those initial conversations with it, see the sorts of responses you get back, and remember you can continue that conversation by iterating, asking it further questions, asking it to give you more detail on a specific topic or something like that, and it does a really nice job there. Okay, if I wanted to start a new conversation with Copilot, I can click on the web button up here, or I can click on the little blue button over there that says Start a New Chat, or I can just click on Chat up here. It all does the same thing. It just basically clears out the conversation I'm on now and it starts a new conversation. So let's do that, Start a New Chat. And here I'm going to ask it to do something a little bit more relevant for work. So even though I'm not using the fully licensed version of Copilot, I'm not using the premium version of Copilot, I can still use Copilot to help me out if I'm doing things like drafting documents or writing emails or these different sorts of things. I'll just do it through here, through the Copilot chat interface. And in this case, I'm going to say, can you draft me an email that I can send out to my customers, telling them about an upcoming training session where I'll be teaching them about Copilot Chat. Let's do that. And Copilot will go away. And quite quickly, it will come back with, there you go, a polished, customer-ready email that you can copy and send. So I can copy this email, put it into Outlook and send it out. It keeps the tone professional but upbeat, focuses on clear, practical benefits. So you can see here what it's done. It's come up with a title for my email, and I can just basically copy this information, paste it across into Outlook, fill in these little placeholders here about the date and the time, maybe a registration link, something like that. And it's done that for me very, very quickly. Now, of course, I could write that in the real world, and I might want to change it a little bit. I might want to modify it a bit, but that's not a bad starting point. And you'll see this quite a lot with AI as well. It's really good at kind of getting over that first hurdle if you're writing a new document or creating a presentation or something like that. Get Copilot to do that initial piece. And then you'll maybe use your own skills and expertise to sort of refine it and to polish it off and those sorts of things. Now this looks quite nice, and you might find that if you tried asking Copilot to do the same thing here, you might get something a little bit different. You might see something that has a few emojis popping up all over the place, or maybe the tone might be a bit different. And it's not just luck that it's come out in this format that you can see here. The reason it's coming back with a polished, customer-friendly, ready-to-read email that you can see here is because I've got something set up behind the scenes to tell Copilot how I want it to respond to me. And that's called the custom instructions. And I'll show you where you can set your custom instructions now. If I come up here to my three-dot menu at the top right, I can come here, I can go to Settings. And over here on the left, I've got Personalization. And then there's this section here called Custom Instructions. And if I show you my custom instructions, you can see here that I'm saying I want the tone and style to be formal yet approachable and a conversational tone. Keep it professional and friendly. I've got here some information about the length and the clarity. So use short paragraphs and bullet points where appropriate. And it did that in the email that it wrote for me. Come down a bit further, I've got things like avoid jargon. Don't use too many emojis because AI out of the box sometimes puts too many emojis all over the place. And this key one here, avoid using M dashes, which are kind of those extended hyphens that you quite often see, and they're a clear sign that something's been written by AI because no one uses those in the real world. So I've said don't use those, and you'll see that the response that was generated for me didn't use those. I've also got in here somewhere, always use British English, so I don't get any Americanisms. So if you find you're getting Americanisms, you can come and set your custom instructions up. Say don't use British English, sorry, do use British English, and then that means that your responses will come back in British English. Now, the custom instructions I set up here, you'll see that there are some options just to kind of choose some of these default options you have here. Actually, what I did is I went into Copilot and I said, I told it a bit about what I do, what my job is, and then I said I want to write some custom instructions. What information do you need to know? And Copilot came back and then asked me some questions, which I answered. And then it gave me some custom instructions that I could just copy and paste into here. So even though it looks like there's quite a bit of stuff in here, it's actually really easy to create. I just got Copilot to do it for me, and it's now created something which means when I ask Copilot questions, it comes back with something in the style and the format that I really prefer to see things in. Okay, let's start a new chat and look at something else. I'm going to do this one here. So that was an email. In this case, I'm going to say, can you draft a new customer data handling policy document for a UK-based recruitment company? So how should they be handling their customer data? And again, this is the sort of document that I might be asked to create if I was working for a recruitment company. Lots of organizations have customer data handling policies. And if you're asked to create one, often you don't really know where to start. You might go and look for some other examples online and, copy them almost. But in this case, Copilot goes away and it creates a good outline for us. And you can see here it's created something which, again, I could copy and I could paste this into Word, and that would be a good start for my customer data handling policy. And it takes, what, 30 seconds to go through and create something like this, which isn't so bad. And looking at this, I actually think, well, it's not bad, but some of it's a bit light. I might want a bit more information on here. So what I can then do is I can then, reiterate further. I can say to Copilot, I want more information on this section, or I want more information on that section. So let's say, for example, this section here, data breaches. Give me more detail on this section. Something like that. And Copilot will go away. And this time, instead of it just being, a few bullet points here for in the event of data breaches, what do we do? It's going to come back and give me much more information now around that. Okay, so it really kind of digs into the detail here if you ask it to. And you'll notice that as well. Quite often when you're working with AI and Copilot, you'll ask it for some information, it will come back with something, and you'll just need to reiterate, get it to give you a bit more information, a bit more detail. And it does a really good job of doing that for you as well. So now I've got a really great starting point. If I want to go ahead and build this customer data handling policy, Copilot can help me do this much, much quicker than I'd otherwise be able to do if I was doing it manually by myself. Now, anytime you create something with AI, you'll always see this little warning sign, little caveat down at the bottom. AI generated content may be incorrect. And that's a really kind of key thing as well. There is the possibility that you might get hallucinations from AI where it creates something that sounds plausible but is in fact not accurate. And one thing to kind of remember is that anything that you create with AI, it's still your work, it's still your information, if you like, that you're creating, and you own it. Okay, so you can't just create something with AI, send it off to all of your customers or send it off to everybody internally and assume it's accurate. Because if somebody then comes back to you and says, there's a bit of a problem with this, it's not the AI's fault, it's your fault for not checking it. Okay, so AI absolutely does help you do things quicker, but just remember that it's still up to you to check it and to critique it and make sure that it is accurate before you then kind of distribute it off to everybody else. Okay, other things that we can use Copilot Chat for. We can use it to maybe summarize files. And this is an example that you might have seen before as well. Here I've got a file here, which I'm going to upload into Copilot. And I could just press the plus button here and browse to a file that existed within my SharePoint site maybe, or OneDrive. Here, in fact, I've got a file that's on my desktop, so I can just click on it here and I can drag it into my Copilot window. This is a PDF document. This is actually the budget report from the budget at the end of last year. Quite a long document. It's a 150-page PDF file with lots of text and lots of tables and lots of data. And I can say something like this. Let's do this one. Okay, summarize the key items discussed in this report in 10 bullet points. And it would normally take me a long time to go away and read through this. But in this case, Copilot should be able to digest that data pretty quickly and come back with a response pretty quickly. Now, this is a bit of a high-level example. In the real world, if I wanted to summarize a large document, I'd usually have a reason for summarizing it. There'd be maybe key pieces of information I wanted to pull from it, or I wanted to summarize it from the viewpoint of a particular person or a particular organization. So in that case, I just give Copilot a bit more information here, a bit more of an instruction. Here I'm keeping things really sort of generic, just to kind of hopefully speed things up a little bit. But before too long, it will come back with a nice summary of the 10 kind of key issues that were discussed in the budget last year. And if you watch the news in the evening of the budget day last year, this is pretty much the headlines that you'd have seen. You kind of see here things like, cost of living support, major investment in infrastructure, NHS reform, all of the different sorts of things you can see here. So like I say, that's a 150-page PDF document, and Copilot can go away and look through that information really, really quickly and come back with some high-level, guidance as to what that document's about, really nice and quickly, nice and easily. Let's start a new chat. Let's say that I'm responsible for the social media posts, the LinkedIn posts that are going out for my organization, and we have a new event coming up, and I want to tell people about this event that's coming up, but I'm lacking a bit of creativity in my head. Maybe it's a Monday morning, I'm struggling to work out a nice engaging LinkedIn post that I can write, and of course Copilot can help me with that as well. So here we go, write an engaging LinkedIn post that I can use to encourage people to join my next M365 Copilot training webinar, and include a clear call to action. And Copilot will go away, and again within a few seconds it will come back with an outline for a LinkedIn post. Notice again it's giving me some information here about it being professional, clear and engaging, which ties in with those custom instructions that I've got set up. Scroll through it here and you can see here it's kind of built this out for me, even give me some little hashtags there I can use to try and get a little bit more engagement on my LinkedIn posts. Now, of course, I might want to change it. I might want to say, can you do this again? Can you give me some more guidance here? Can you give me another option? And it will go away and it will do that for you. But that's a nice little way that you can, use Copilot to do that sort of stuff for you as well. And again, because I've told it not to use jargon, not to use those M-dash things, this doesn't necessarily look initially straight away like it's been written by AI as well, which is always a good sign. Okay. Let's just come back and have a look at some of the things we've got over here as well. So that's kind of a high level how we engage with Copilot. We've done this already. We've had this conversation with Copilot, started to engage with it and started to see how we can get responses back from Copilot as well. Some kind of high level guidance here about prompting. The less effective prompts are the ones which are maybe just a bit vague and a bit short and not many words, and they don't have any context. They don't specify what you want the output to be. And the more effective prompts are the ones that are a bit more detailed. You may be writing full sentences, give Copilot a bit more instruction about what it is you're trying to do and what it is you're trying to get, the information you're trying to get out. Give it some information about the tone, the purpose, the preferred format, those different sorts of things. So there are lots of different guidelines that you can find about prompting. But like I said before, if you're brand new to it and you're engaging with Copilot and AI for the first time, the most important thing I think is that you have a play around with it. Just have a normal conversation with it. Ask it questions, ask it for pieces of information, get it to help you plan things that you might be doing in your life, and then you'll get used to it. Then you'll get used to how you engage with it, and then as you become more comfortable, you can then start looking maybe at the more detailed prompts that you can start to create. Okay, we've done this already. We've uploaded a file. So we uploaded a file here and we said, Copilot, could you summarize that budget report? Similarly, another thing you can do, if I come back over to here and start a new chat again, if I press the / button on my keyboard, notice here how it comes up with a list of recently opened files that I've had. And I can basically reference a file that already exists here. So this is a example file. It's not a real world file. It's just one for demo purposes. And I can say, give me summary of the key points discussed in this file. And it will go away and do that. Okay, so I've uploaded a file here which exists on my OneDrive, and it's going to go away, and Copilot's going to analyze it, and it's going to come back and give me some information about what's included in that file. So like I mentioned before, even though I'm uploading document here into the free version, the free version of M365 Copilot, you still get that enterprise data protection. So nothing here is being used to train any AI language models. All of the data here, the information within this this PowerPoint file in this case, is all safe and secure. Nothing's going outside of your security boundary for your organization. And you can see here it's gone away and it's pulled through some of the key details from this PowerPoint presentation. Very nice. And I could do other things. I could maybe get Copilot to write an executive summary email, executive briefing email that I could send to my boss that just, covered all the key topics that were covered here as well, and it would go away and do that. So another nice little thing that you can do. Okay, let's start a new chat, and I'll show you a couple of other little things as well. This is quite a nice little example. I have here 2 different Word documents. And they're basically, again, they're just sample files, but they're sample supplier agreements. that I've had from 2 different suppliers that I've put some work out to tender. These 2 different suppliers have come back to me, and these 2 files are quite similar, but there are 1 or 2 different things on here. So maybe the payment terms are different, those different sorts of things as well. It doesn't look like these are uploading properly, so let's just try that again. I'm very impatient. If stuff takes more than 5 seconds, I assume it's not working. Let's try that one more time. An error occurred. Okay, let's try and see if we can turn it off and turn it on again. That looks better. So that's the first one, Alpha Tech Solutions, and this is the second one, Beta Tech Innovations. So both of those files now have been uploaded. And now I'm going to use this prompt here, which I'll just talk you through. Copilot, we've been asked to review the supplier agreements for Alpha Tech Solutions and Beta Tech Innovations. That's those 2 attachments there. Please compare the 2 documents, identify any variations we need to be aware of before advising our client. When you complete the comparison, list all the differences in the table and include an additional column indicating which set of terms is more favourable for our client. And then finally, prepare a detailed email response that we can send to our customer summarising the findings. So we're asking Copilot to do a few things here. We're asking it to analyse those 2 files. We're asking it to create a little summary which kind of tells us which is the better option. We're asking it to create a table for us, which is a nice, easy to read way for us to kind of see the differences between these 2 documents. And then finally, we're asking it to create that email for us as well. So all these different things which it's doing here will help to save me time. Usually it would take me a little bit longer to go through and review these 2 files with a fine-tooth comb. But here you can see basically the 2 documents have been listed in this table that we can see here, and it tells us here the differences between these 2 documents, like that one's an initial 2-year contract, whereas this one's an initial 3-year contract. And then Copilot makes a recommendation as to which is the better. In this case, it says that Alpha Tech is the better one because of the shorter initial contracts. Come down through here, and we can see towards the bottom there are some sections where this Beta Tech is the preferred option. Okay, has a higher liability cap. Scroll down further, it gives me this little summary, some of the key observations, this overall assessment, and then finally it drafts that email for me that we can send out to our customer, explaining the differences between the 2 and making the recommendation for which one might be the better option as well. So a really quite nice illustration there of how you can upload files into Copilot. You can ask Copilot to compare and analyze those files, but not just produce the comparison in a text format. You can create in a nice little table like you can see here, nice and easy for you to look through and to read through and just check it's all correct. Come down a bit further, and then we've got that little email that's been drafted as well. So all those different things happen in the space of what, a minute to create all of that, which is a really quite a nice little illustration there as well. Okay, now if you have got the fully licensed version of Copilot, then of course you can use it to do things like capture meeting transcripts. You can use Copilot to transcribe a meeting and then to give you an AI generated meeting note off the back of that meeting in Teams. Now, even in the normal version of Teams, you can still transcribe a meeting, you can still record a meeting, but you don't automatically get those AI generated meeting notes. But what you could do is you could get that transcription from Teams, like download the transcription from Teams and then upload that transcription back into here, into Copilot. Here I've got a transcription from a previous, again, fictional meeting that I've had. And I can say something on the lines of this one, summarize this meeting transcript and identify any action items and who they're assigned to. So I can upload the transcript into here, into Copilot Chat. Copilot goes away, looks through that transcript, and it comes back and gives me a nice little summary of what was discussed. It's only quite a short transcript, so there's not so much stuff in here. And then it also tells me, who is responsible for any of the action items that have been decided as well. I think it will do that a little bit lower down. So a nice illustration there of, even if you're not using Copilot in Teams, you can still record your meetings, you can still get access to your transcripts, upload your transcripts into here, and use a prompt like this to make it nice and easy to see the key things discussed during that meeting, identify any action items and who they might have been assigned to as well. Okay, you can use Copilot Chat to visualize data. So in this case, the example here, graph the first 20 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, and it goes away and it creates graphs for you. But let's say you had some Excel data in an Excel spreadsheet. You could upload that into Copilot Chat and say, create a chart from this data, and it would do that for you in Copilot Chat as well. And then one other little thing here, which is nice to show you, something called the prompt gallery. Let me show you how to access the prompt gallery. Let me just go back to this web section over here again, or UChat rather. Oh, there you go. Do you know what? That's changed since the last time I had Copilot open yesterday. But here we go. I've got this little button here with the 3 dots. And if I go to that, it takes me to this thing here called the Copilot Prompt Gallery. And if I scroll down through here, I can see there's hundreds and hundreds of different kind of recommended prompts from Microsoft that are suggestions for things that you might want to try out in Copilot. And if you wanted to, you could filter this by specific tasks, or you could filter this list by job types. Let's say that I work in sales, for example. And it'll give me some recommendations here for how I might be able to use Copilot. Okay, but also if I go to this Your Prompts section, you see here there's the ability to save your own prompts. And if you save your own prompts, you can then easily access them again in the future. So if you come up with a really, really nice prompt that you want to save and reuse, you can save it into your prompt gallery, and then you can go back and find that in there in the future. And to save a prompt, you simply just go back to one of your previous conversations that you've had, find the prompt that you entered, hover over it, and you see there's an option here that says Save Prompt. And if you save it, it then sticks it into your prompt gallery, which again you can access just by clicking on the little button with the 3 dots there. If your page looks a bit different to mine, you might just need to scroll down the page a bit and you'll see a link to something that says the prompt gallery. But another example there of how the interface changes on a pretty regular basis when you're using Copilot. Okay, I mentioned these earlier before as well, the ability to access these different agents, so things like the prompt coach, the idea coach. And some of these are available, like I say, if you are using the free version of Copilot. Some of them are kind of unlocked if you're using the paid version of Copilot. But if you wanted to check the agents you have access to, on the left-hand side, you should have an option that says Get Agents or All Agents. And if you click on that, it takes you to a page here where you can see all of the different agents you have access to. If you go to Built by Microsoft and just expand this section here, you can see here you have all of the different agents you can see here. And again, some of the ones you see might be a bit different. For example, researcher and analyst are only available if you've got the paid for version of Copilot. But other ones like the prompt coach and the learning coach and the idea coach and the career coach, they are available if you are using the free version of Copilot. Another thing that's available if you've got the paid for version of Copilot is the ability to create your own agents. And you can essentially sort of create like your own little chatbots and things like that as well. So that's not really something we're going to cover in this session. But in the future, if you see a session popping up for M365 Copilot, that's something we'll look at in a bit more detail then. Okay, so Copilot Chat examples, prompt examples. Some of these are the sorts of things we've looked at, but you can just have a quick scan through these and see the kind of ideas for different things that you can use Copilot Chat for. Again, the recording will be made available afterwards as well, so you'll be able to see some of this stuff if you wanted to afterwards as well. And again, for brainstorming and drafting content, there's some more examples of the sorts of things that you might be able to use Copilot Chat for here. So for example, if you've got a big long document, you might say to Copilot, can you create an FAQ based off of this document, or something like that. Okay, talking about FAQs, these are some of the FAQs we get from customers that are adopting Copilot. Why is data protection important? Well, I think I've covered that off, but just to reiterate it one more time as well, it basically means that all of your work data is safe and secure. And if you've got employees that are using the free consumer versions of any other AI tools, that's not necessarily the case, and that information could be being leaked out there, and it could be used used for training these AI models as well. Can you trust the answers you use when generating stuff with AI? Well, Copilot always aims to use reliable information from reliable sources, but it can make mistakes. So just double check everything you're creating as well, just to make sure. It does a pretty good job, but occasionally you do see things popping up which don't quite look right. What can Copilot Chat access when I use it? So Copilot Chat gets its information, it's grounded in data from the web, so that's where it gets its knowledge from. But of course, you can also add your own context to Copilot Chat conversations by uploading your own data into Copilot as well. Are there limits for how much you can use Copilot Chat? Well, there are, but to be honest, it's really unusual for people to hit those limits. If you were creating a lot of images or creating videos or those sorts of things from Copilot, you might get a message come back saying you need to wait an hour or so before you can do it again. In theory, there are limits. They've never really been published from Microsoft. I think it's kind of based on like global demand and that sort of stuff. So yeah, like you might come across it. I never have come across it, so I don't really think that's much of an issue really. Okay, so now a really quick sort of 10-minute or so introduction to M365 Copilot, which is the fully licensed version of Copilot. And you can see here some of the additional things we can do is we can see that Copilot here can access the Microsoft Graph, which is basically our work data. And it's also embedded into our Microsoft 365 applications as well. So applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, actually even more than that. You know, if you use OneNote, you can get Copilot. If you use Forms, you can use Copilot in Forms. If you use Clipchamp, which is an application that a lot of us got access to, you can use Copilot to help you generate you know, video clips from there as well. Even if you use Paint, which you still have access to, even though you probably didn't even realize, Copilot is there in Paint now. And you can use Copilot in Paint to do things like remove backgrounds from images and, you know, delete that annoying person who's photobombed you in a picture. You can use Copilot in Paint to remove those sorts of things from your images as well. So Copilot, M365 Copilot has access to your graph, your work graph, which is basically all of the data that exists in your SharePoint, your Teams chats, your OneDrive, your emails, your calendar, all of that kind of different information that exists within your work tenant. And that means that when you ask Copilot questions, you'll get responses that are not just grounded in the web data, they can also be grounded in your work data, which can be really quite powerful and unlocks all sorts of different opportunities for you. A couple of things just to mention here, you know, there are no security settings as such within Copilot. Copilot adheres to whatever security roles and permissions you have set up within your organization already. So if I'm using Copilot, it can access the files in SharePoint that I can see, and it can access my OneDrive and my emails and my Teams chats. If my colleague sitting next to me is accessing Copilot, it can access their Teams chats and their emails and their OneDrive and their SharePoint stuff, which means that if I ask Copilot a question and they ask Copilot the same question, they might get a slightly different response because Copilot can access different data. So just a really kind of key thing to remember, Copilot can only access the information that I have access to. It doesn't give me access to any information that I do not have access to. So if there's a secure folder on the finance SharePoint site or the HR SharePoint site, then I won't have access to that unless I actually have access to that in SharePoint already. Okay, Copilot in Word can be really good for doing things like you can see in the example here, you know, demonstrating how you can create a proposal document in just a few moments. And in fact, if I come over here, I can show you a really quick kind of example. Let me see if I can find a prompt down here. Something along the lines of this. Let's go into Word over here, create a new blank document in Word. And when I'm in Word, what should happen is that you'll see here it pops up at the top and it gives me an option to use Copilot like straight away here within Word. This is being a little bit slow again. Let's see if I can maybe refresh the page here. Create a blank document. I'm usually an advocate for using the web versions of these applications because they tend to work a little bit better for me. But in this case, something funny is going on and it's slowed down a little bit. There we go, we got there eventually. So you've seen now that in Word, I get this little Copilot option pops up at the top here, and it basically says, what do you want me to do? And I can come here and I can say something like this, right? A brief document that details the benefits that SMBs in the UK can get from using Microsoft Copilot. And if I wanted to, I could add content and I could reference other work files that I've been working on. But in this case, let's just get Copilot to draft something from scratch, and it will go away and it will do that for me. And in just a few moments, you see here it starts to build out this nice professional looking document for me, which in this case highlights some of the benefits for UK SMBs around using Copilot. What it's created here is 2 pages so far. Looks like it's still going through. There we go. It's just put together a really kind of brief summary of some of the ways that you can use Copilot and get benefits from Copilot. And what I can do now is I can even come over here and say something like, hover over that section, go to edit with Copilot and say this needs to be needs to be more detailed, and Copilot will go away and it'll rewrite that section for me. So in just a few moments, I can start to build the outline of a document. I can have a little look through, see which I prefer. Let's choose to replace that. And you can see here, you can do things like that. I then have the option to open up Copilot in my sidebar over here. And I can use Copilot over here to do things like, maybe add a content section, or maybe add a references section, or maybe change the language or change the tone, or those different sorts of things. Maybe turn this into like an executive briefing email that I can then send out to somebody within my organization. So really nice, you can go through and use Copilot in Word to create things from scratch. Similarly in PowerPoint, I can come over to PowerPoint like this, and you'll see here I have the option to create a new presentation using Copilot just here. And again, I'll get the option to do something like you can see here. So let's say create a presentation about the information in my Q4 performance report. Change that, Q4 performance report. And then if I press that / button, I can reference my Q4 performance report. And there it is. So that's a Word document. I'm saying basically turn that into a PowerPoint presentation. This does take a little bit of time. It goes through here and it maybe takes a couple of minutes, maybe sometimes a little bit longer to kind of create this for me. It starts off by saying, this is the basic outline of your presentation. So quite a brief one in this case. I can then choose a template that I wanted to use. If I've got my own organization templates, my own corporate branded templates, I could choose that if I wanted to, but in this case, I'll just stick with a Microsoft default like this. And then this probably takes another 2 or 3 minutes to go away and create these slides. So what I've done in Blue Peter fashion, here's one I created earlier. And this is basically what it comes out with. So a nice professional looking presentation that I can scroll through. And in fact, if I put it into presenter mode here, you'll see that there are things like page transitions in here. Let's see if this works. There you go, some nice little animations and those different sorts of things. So it really creates something quite nice for me there. And again, I can open up Copilot here and I can ask it to maybe create things like speaker notes, or I could maybe say, change the detail on this slide, or let you tell me what are the main things I should be covering on this slide, and it will go away and do that sort of stuff for me as well. So Copilot in PowerPoint is also quite nice and great for kind of creating that first draft of a presentation before you then go on and refine it and polish it and make it a bit more detailed. Copilot in Excel, again, can be really good for analyzing data. If I open up Copilot here, one of the things I can maybe do in Excel is I can say something along the lines of what we can see here. So I'm going to actually just turn that off. Come to what we can see here. Analyze the data in this table. Actually, let's do it on this tab. That makes a bit more sense. Analyze the data in this table and write an executive summary that I can send to my manager with the key findings. And it will go through and analyze the data, and it will very quickly, write the draft of an email that I can send to my manager that talks about the key findings in this spreadsheet. Again, this is all fictional sample data here, so there's nothing particularly sensitive being shown. Okay, it's just taking a few moments, but it won't take too long before it'll come back and it'll actually draft out that email for me, which I can then copy from here and then paste into Outlook and then, send that email off to my manager. So I'm a bit of a go slow. Just in the interest of time, we're going to stop that and you'll take my word for it. If we had some more time, I'd show you that working a little bit better. But in this case, I'm just going to slow things down and move on to something else. I just want to quickly show you this as well. For people that kind of use Excel occasionally, a lot of us use Excel, but very few of us kind of claim to be experts with Excel. Copilot is great to kind of help us raise our game, and it can basically allow us to do things like create lookups and create pivot tables and all these different sorts of things just by using our natural language. And here I've got an example of a prompt I can use. I just typed it in here, equals Copilot, and then I said create a table that shows the total expected value, which is this column here, for each owner, which is this column here, and run that. And what should happen is in just a few moments, it should come back and it should do that for me. It should come back with a nice little table that shows me what's going on here. I'm laughing a bit because, again, this usually happens very quickly. But for some reason, that's taken a little bit longer. Again, let me just see if I can refresh this. Give that another chance. See if that works. I thinking about it. I'm going to give it 5 more seconds, and if not, then I'm going to park that one for now. But again, another example there. Oh, there we go. I got there eventually. So it's gone through and it's looked at the different owners and it's worked out the different pipeline values just by using, again, that prompt, which I just used my natural language. I didn't say do a lookup or anything like that. It's just gone away and worked out what it needed to do, and it's done it. In Outlook, Copilot's great for doing things like summarising long email threads, for drafting new emails. It can help you schedule meetings. It can help you change the tone and give you some coaching about your writing, those different sorts of things, which can be really quite nice as well. And in Teams, of course, Copilot is great for taking your meeting notes, writing up meeting notes and turning them into professional looking notes so you can distribute out to people internally and externally in just a few minutes. And if you're responsible for writing meeting notes, then it can typically take a long time. It doesn't just do that. Of course, you can also use Copilot to help you prepare for meetings, look at conversations you've had with an individual or a business beforehand, and then get Copilot to build you like a preparation pack and to remind you of some of the discussions you've had in the past with that customer. And it can do a really good job there as well. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up everything that I was hoping to get through. If anybody has any questions, please do feel free to ask either in the Q&A or you can stick something into the chat window. I'd be very happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm just going to move on to my final slide, which is this one here, which has got some contact information for the team at Manage 24/7. And I will hand back to you, James, if there's anything you'd like to finish off with. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just the one thing actually, it was a personal question around the saving your own prompts once you've refined one and it's working for you. Can you share that with the wider team?
Yeah, good question. Let me come back over into my prompt gallery. I'm hesitating a bit here because I don't know if it's something that's changed. It used to be the case that from the web tab, which is the one we're at the moment, so the one that's kind of included in Copilot Chat, there is an option over here. If I go to My Prompts, there's an option over here that goes to Share Prompt, and you can share to, you either get the link, which you can then paste into a Teams channel, or you can share to a team like this. So let's share it here into my Copilot team and share it like that. And then what I think that does is actually saved it over into the Work tab. Oh no, there it is. It's added it up here.
You've got team prompts. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah,
I was looking for something like that, a group one. Okay.
Yeah, exactly like that. So that's a great thing to do, and I think that's a really good way to kind of encourage adoption throughout your organization as well. If you come up with a great prompt that you find real benefit in, tell other people about it in your team and your department, and they can start using it as well, and they'll get benefit from it. And then the opposite will be true. They'll share their good prompts as well with you as well. So yeah, good question. It is pretty straightforward to share those prompts, and it's definitely something that's worthwhile doing.
Perfect. And the only other one from the Q&A was from Jimmy, and I've gone ahead and answered it. But Andy, I'm going to defer to your expertise here, and you can validate my answer in the chat.
Okay. If we're using 365, can we safely point a prompt to a SharePoint location and not have to upload the files directly? So if you've got the premium version of Microsoft 365 Copilot, it can access your SharePoint data. And there are different ways that you can kind of turn that on or off if you wanted to. At the SharePoint admin level now, you have the option to basically decide whether you want a SharePoint site to be accessible by Copilot or not. So if there was some SharePoint sites that you did not want Copilot to have access to for anybody, you could literally turn that off at a SharePoint site level. Otherwise, the rule is it kind of access what you can access. So yeah, you can use it to access stuff within a folder. In fact, I can give you a really, really quick kind of demonstration about that if you want. On my work mode over here, I can say something like this, using files in my office relocation folder, come up with a 6-week relocation plan. Okay, and that office relocation folder that I'm just referencing by name there actually exists on my OneDrive, but it could exist on my SharePoint site, and it would do exactly the same thing. It will go away and it will look for that folder, and it will come back with, there you go. It's going to see these are the files that exist in your folder. There you go, that relocation plan. You can see here this timeline file here. You can see, and it will do that for you as well. So you can reference folder names by name like that, and if you're in the work mode, Copilot can access that stuff.
Great stuff. Thank you. I think that was the only question we had in the Q&A. So I think we can probably close off. So yeah, Andy, thank you very much for that. Really, really useful. I know you've done a few sessions around this as well. So thank you for that. And thanks for everyone for attending today, and enjoy your Thursday.